Hello, my friends, and welcome to another segment of Let's Talk Herbs. I'm an herbalist with a deep appreciation for the plants that can assist us in staying well. This is a webcast about using herbs to nurture our health and well-being. Please keep in mind that I'm not a doctor and this talk does not constitute medical advice. Last time we talked about nurturing our physical well-being, and this time we're going to talk about supporting our mental well-being. Last time we talked about the importance of sleep, which for most of us is 7 to 9 hours that are recommended. About exercise, what's recommended is 30 minutes per day. And as we get older, using low-impact exercise makes a lot of sense: walking, bicycling, swimming, and so on. Also, we talked briefly about meditation. It has a physical payoff, but today I'm going to talk about it in support of our mental well-being. Specifically, there's an app that can be purchased for the laptop or your smartphone, and it's called Calm, C-A-L-M. I'm not endorsing Calm. There are many apps, but I can say that in support of my own mental well-being, if I have trouble sleeping, music helps with sleep and relaxation. But in this particular app and in others, there's a segment where they have what are called sleep stories. And that is just a calming story that talks you into relaxation. I have found that very helpful. Today I want to talk specifically about the impact of nutrition on our mental well-being, and specifically using herbs for infusions. And then I also want to talk about the power of connection. So the herbs that are used for infusions are very specific. There are 5 that I use in rotation, one herb every day for 5 successive days. Then you can take a couple days off or use a different herb, but I use these in succession. So what I do is this: using a heat-resistant jar like a ball jar, I've mentioned in making infusions before, measure out 1 full ounce by weight, not by volume, by weight, 1 ounce of a dried herb, and then fill the jar to the neck with boiling water, stir it with a wooden spoon, then refill the jar to capacity, put the cap on tightly, and let the mixture infuse at room temperature for at least 4 hours or overnight. Then, in the morning or after that period of time, strain out the herbs and refrigerate the contents, and aim to drink the contents of the full quart jar in 1 day. If not, aim to finish it the next day. And then rotate through the herbs for 5 days. So the herbs for infusion are as follows. The first one is comfrey, C-O-M-F-R-E-Y, comfrey leaf. Comfrey leaf supports the bones, skin, tendons, and ligaments, and the muscles, as well as the mucous membranes of the reproductive, digestive, and respiratory systems. It makes the mucous membranes stronger and more flexible. This is for use both internally and externally, as I mentioned last time, after you've strained the herb out while it's still wet, or you can wet it more. You can wrap it in a cloth and then place it on, well, my knees get very sore. I put it on my knees for 10 minutes or so. You can either put it on chilled, or if it feels better, to put it on warmed in the microwave, not hot, but warm, and leave that on. It really does help soothe the aches of sore joints and muscle soreness after exercise. That's externally. Internally, some people have said don't use comfrey. And it's true, comfrey used to contain compounds that were harmful if taken very often or in quantity internally. But for the last 25 years or so, this plant has been hybridized in the United States to omit those compounds that are problematic. They are pyrrolizidine alkaloids, and they occur naturally based on the structure of pyrrolizidine. They're produced by plants as a defense mechanism against insects. But after this plant has been hybridized to omit this in the United States, the Northwest Association sent a sample of comfrey to be studied that was grown in the West Coast from the Rocky Mountain states, and also a sample from the East Coast. And scientists found less than 1 part per trillion in one of the samples and no parts at all in the other samples. So these pyrrolizidizing compounds are no longer a problem. And the information you might find that says don't use this internally, that's no longer accurate. So it's safe to use internally. That's number 1, comfrey leaf. Number 2 is stinging nettle that I have mentioned before, in particular with reference to disease and the disease process in the body. Stinging nettle helps to counter the effects of the body's overactive immune system as it seeks to counter the virus infection. And it's called I forget what it's called, but it's a storm that the body sets up when it is having trouble fighting these things off, and the body can start to attack its own tissues. So stinging nettle is very helpful to have at this point when we're still dealing with COVID-19. Stinging nettle is very helpful for sustained energy throughout the day. Unlike caffeine that gives you a lift and then drops you off again, stinging nettle is supportive of your energy needs throughout the day. It does not contain caffeine, but the compounds that are in it support the body's metabolic processes in such a way that it sustains energy. It's helpful also for preventing type 2 diabetes. Number 3, red clover. It's one of the world's leading cancer-preventing herbs. And you can look this up, you can study this yourself. I won't do all that in this talk, but red clover is a good herb to have in rotation with the others that I'm mentioning. Again, only 1 herb per day. Don't mix them, and do it in each of 5 succeeding days. Number 4 is oat straw. Yeah, same plant you get oatmeal from, and oat bread and oats of various kinds. This is made from the dried oat straw. It helps to maintain a healthy nervous system and a strong and healthy endocrine system. And the endocrine glands are what help us deal with stress, for example. So oat straw is very helpful for that. I find myself feeling, I don't know, somehow more supported in terms of stress when I have this in rotation. And then finally, linden flowers. This comes from a tree called the linden tree that is found in the Northeast, even in the wild. It's also called the basswood or bass, B-A-S-S tree. And at this time of year, which is in June, it has flowers that are very, very fragrant. And if you can identify the tree, you can gather this in the wild. When dried and used as an infusion, you would add just 1/2 of an ounce of linden flowers to the quart jar and then pour boiling water over it. It's the world's leading anti-cold and anti-flu herbs. So in this environment, when we have a novel coronavirus going on, this is a good thing to do. Additionally, if you have lung issues, as I do, sometimes I also use mullein, mullein leaf. It's an expectorant, and it helps to rid the lungs of excess mucus. There are other herbs that could be used, but these are the 5 or 6 that I typically use pretty often in rotation. Also, I want to mention in using infusions, you can make a cold infusion of various ingredients, and specifically cold infusions can be found on the web. Let me find that resource. There are different recipes that you can get. I'm still looking for it. Here it is. There are 8 recipes for infusions that are really very tasty and to keep you hydrated when it's very hot. This week, where I live, it's very hot for the entire week, and many can be found on the web, but the 8 recipes that I found at culinaryhill.com, culinaryhill.com /8-infused-water-recipes gives some good information on that. And I do that during the summer. Now, I just want to mention, it's not recommended that you use any herbs for infusion that are aromatic, such as mint, thyme, or rosemary. Not in the boiling hot water infusion anyway. Cold infusion, it's okay. Mint, I mentioned that I grow lemon balm, which is in the mint family, and it's very tasty. I use that in cold water infusions. Rosemary, I use rose hips. Some people like to use cucumber. I don't do that. I grow a plant called borage, borage. It has a beautiful blue flower, and that tastes a little bit like cucumber, but it's a milder flavor. Cucumber can be very strident in a cold water infusion for my taste. Now let's move on to connection. As we know, it's very important to be connected to other people. The negative effects of isolation really can be quite serious. In fact, in Psychology Today magazine from August 26th in 2012, there is an article called Connect to Thrive. A well-known commentator, TED Talk giver, Brene Brown, who has written a number of books that bear on this topic, Brene Brown. She was quoted in that article as saying, "A deep sense of love and belonging is an irresistible need of all people. We are biologically, cognitively, physically, and spiritually wired to love, to be loved, and to belong. When those needs are not met, we don't function as we were meant to. We break, we fall apart, we numb, we ache, we hurt others, and we get sick." So it's very important to nurture connectedness. Deepak Chopra, whom many of you might be familiar with, is well known throughout the world for the topics that bear on psychology and spirituality and so on, and on physical, mental, and spiritual well-being, of course. Deepak Chopra has an online site at Chopra, CHOPRA.com. There's an article there by Tamara Lechner, Lechner, who is a certified meditation instructor. That article is called The Science of Cultivating Connection. And in it, she talks about the ways that we can foster connection that I think are really valuable to talk about. You've seen this in many places probably, but I just want to mention these here once again because it's so important. She says, initiate connection. Don't wait for other people to text you or call you or connect with you. Try making social connections. In this period of isolation, we can do that online through various online apps such as Zoom, FaceTime, and others. And yes, reach out and connect with people. The second, the first was initiate connections. The second is to send life updates by email or those other connections that I mentioned. Just a quick email to update your friends or your relatives, the people you care about, on what's going on with you. And they'll often do the same for you so that you can keep in touch. Facebook is useful for that as well. Number 3 is to practice gratitude. It's been shown over and over again how important it is to think about the things that are going right in our lives. At the end of the day, I list 3 things that I'm grateful for, and that really helps me to drop off to sleep and to wake up feeling hopeful. Practice gratitude. And then number 4 is acceptance. When you see someone as they truly are, with all their faults and flaws, and accept them anyway, it helps you to stay really present by not needing to change someone, the other person, either now or in the future. Number 5 is forgiveness. To practice forgiveness and to realize that we all make mistakes helps us to move past that holding on to anger. Holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. Very profound. And then finally, humor. It's very important, and humor, they say, is the best medicine. Shared laughter is a wonderful building block for a relationship. And then lastly, I want to mention many of us have smartphones where you can download podcasts through the iTunes Apple app, or in many other places. You can also get them online. A podcast that I'm really appreciating is called The Happiness Lab. It's by a professor at, I think it's Yale University, who teaches a course on happiness there and has for some years. The Happiness Lab is episodes that are maybe 10-15 minutes long. It contain a lot of good information and interviews with people who know a lot about cultivating happiness and well-being. So I really highly recommend that. I use that when I'm walking my dog. There's another one called This Is Love. And it's just stories about love between people and love by an animal, for an animal, many different ways of loving that there are discussed. And then finally, another one called Anxiety Slayer. During this period of global pandemic, there's a lot of anxiety to be had. It can interfere with our well-being, with our sleep, and I have found that there are some really good tips there about how to promote our well-being. And so now I want to mention the resources. You can contact me at earthmama912@gmail.com if you want to comment on this or ask me questions about any of this or about any topic that bears on herbalism. I keep extensive records of all the resources that I have mentioned in any of our Let's Talk Herbs segments. I've mentioned sources before to get herbs at herb-pharm.com, at mountainroseherbs.com, at starwestbotanicals.com, at frontiercoop.com. And then I've also mentioned chopper.com today and psychologytoday.com. So, my friends, be well, stay well, and nurture yourself.